Do we still live in a G3 world from a diplomatic and economic and strategic standpoint? Yes, I certainly think that we do, based upon the share of the world population that has these sorts of gravitational allegiances. Yes, but when it comes to Asia in particular, I devoted the most recent book about Asia to arguing that Asia itself is multipolar. Not only is the world multipolar, but Asia is multipolar. So I don't view Asia as a uniform sinocentric block. It is sinocentric in many ways, but it's certainly not a block. It's a very heavily contested dynamic. And the United States, for certain, and Europe as well, are actually trying to play growing roles in ensuring that multipolarity of that third region of importance, Asia. And so I think that we'll still continue to have a competitive geopolitical landscape. And in that sense, I think that's actually a very good thing. I do not believe that unipolar hegemony is healthy. Even as an American, I don't think it's healthy, because I don't think that America can alone has the capacity, the competence, to actually be a global public goods provider in all of the ways that are necessary. I certainly don't attribute that wisdom to China either, nor to Europe. So I actually believe that a vigorous marketplace, what I call a geopolitical marketplace, a competition for authority to be the provider, the trusted provider of certain utilities, whether it is capital, whether it's technology, whether it is military hardware, whether it's energy. I think that's actually a very healthy situation that we are in. It can be a race to the top rather than a race to the bottom. And that's not a naive aspiration. That's precisely what's happening in perhaps one of the most critical geopolitical domains right now, which is infrastructure finance. As soon as people started taking the view in 2015, 2016, that China was dominating infrastructure finance through the Belt and Road Initiative, suddenly the Americans, the Europeans, the Australians, the Japanese, the Indians, everyone woke up and said, we have to have countermeasures, coordinated countermeasures to ensure multipolarity. And that's exactly what has happened. So I do not believe this is the same as balance of power. We're not talking about a purely military realignments to achieve containment. Although that's partially it, I think it's more interesting to look at the dynamics in the financial, infrastructural, and trade-related orbits, and that gives you a better sense of what's going on.
Which is where I was trying to get with my question. If you look at, for instance, supply chains and manufacturing, the global manufacturing, the division of labor, if you will, then what started a couple of years ago was an attempt to unbundle at least certain critical nodes, if you will. And COVID was used and misused to essentially claim, look, yet another reason or example how sensitive it is and that we need to do something about it. You often talk about this concept of devolution and concentration. So when we use that as a sort of an analytical tool, where do you expect more concentration, the globalization, if you will, to continue, and where you would expect devolution when it comes to economy, business, finance on the global / regional, let's say, scale?
Oh, it's a great question. So this might be an area, and this is something that over the course of this year I've been talking a lot about, is regionalism, right? COVID, in a way, de facto accelerates regionalism because people can't move outside of their immediate regional borders nearly as much as before, and they have less and less reason to do so because A, the global economy is in the slump, and B, travel is restricted, and C, you have protectionist or industrial policies that predate COVID that are now being reinforced as people realize that we need to try to be more self-sufficient in agriculture, energy, manufacturing, and other areas. So efforts to nearshore production of vaccines and medical equipment, to grow one's own food, and to not be dependent on imported hydrocarbon energy. All of those are accelerating. North America, Europe, Asian countries, and so forth. So I call this a continental drift of regionalism. And I do think that that will continue. So that is, as the way I had phrased it earlier, was the devolution and aggregation dynamic. So devolution meaning the splintering into smaller and smaller polities. provinces, city-states, a growing federalism and autonomy on the one hand, but the aggregation into these regional systems of mutuality, of complementarity, and not necessarily supranational coordination, but certainly supply chain integration. And that's very much what has been accelerating pre-COVID, and COVID has most definitely ramped this up.